Hello, my name is Ed Fries, and today I'm going to be talking about task analysis. Task analysis is taking any task and breaking it up into multi-steps so that the task is more easy to understand how to do. And we often see this thing in furniture building. If you can only imagine putting together a piece of furniture without the instructions, it would probably be very difficult for most people. But when looking at tasks that most people take for granted, such as tying your shoes, we often lose sight of the fact of how many steps are actually present in doing that. And so we can use task analysis as a teaching strategy along with other systematic teaching strategies, and it becomes an evidence-based practice that will help students with disabilities, and really anybody for that matter, um, learn how to complete something that might have been too complex for them to understand as a whole task. So in order to do this, one of the things we do is we basically make a list of the steps that are used to complete the task, and then we will actually follow the steps ourselves to make sure that the list that we created to do the task will actually complete the task. Now, there's a couple ways that you can actually do this. There's what's considered the total task, and to do that, you would create steps 1 through the last task, and you would teach it as an entire unit. So, anytime you would run through this, your task analysis strategy, you would start at the first step and end at the last step, coaching and guiding, and then using prompts, but fading those prompts as you go until that task is mastered. There's also another way to do it called forward chaining. This happens when you can teach the first step enough to where it becomes independent, and then as it's independent, you can give a verbal prompt to start the task, but the student should do the first task independently. You give them a reinforcer, and then you guide them through the other necessary tasks, and eventually, with removing prompts and lowering the amount of guidance that you're giving that student, they will be able to do it on their own. Backwards chaining is the same thing, only backwards. This is where they end up becoming independent with the last step of the task, and so you actually guide them step 1 all the way up until that last step, and then they do that last step on their own, and you give the reinforcer, and you basically work backwards to try to build up their understanding, their skill level to complete the task as a whole. One of the things that I'm going to be demonstrating today is how to wash hands, and so I actually created a hand washing sheet that sits in front of my sink. Originally, when I took over the class, it was done in a cartoon visual, and I try to make things as real as possible so the students can see it. So I actually ended up getting parent permission from one of my students and was able to take pictures of that student in my classroom using that exact sink. And so this allows for the student to visually be able to see the instructions, hear the instructions and the prompts verbally, and as if they can also read them. It also allows for adult support to be very consistent in how they do it. I want to keep the same vernacular going, and I want to keep the same order with the instructions so not to confuse the student. And if you look at this, you can very easily see that I have broken it up in a way so like the soap would get 2 pumps. The time to wipe the soap on the hands, we say the ABCs. And for the towels, for an example, there's 3 pumps on the towel before you tear it. So I've set up specific guidelines on that any adult that would be assisting the student would keep the consistency going so that the student doesn't get confused in my breaking up of those tasks.
So for this first example of task analysis, we're going to be doing what's called forward chaining. And I'm going to be using my daughter, Clarissa. And in this forward chaining that we end up doing, what we're going to do is we're going to originally teach the student the skill independently, the first step of our chain. Once that's done, then we will give her some sort of reinforcement for doing it, and we will go ahead and continue all of the steps that are necessary, fading those prompts away that we're using. So in this case here, I'm going to demonstrate using full physical, and then you would know that in the future you're going to fade these things away until they can do this task completely on their own. I will be using the vernacular that I have posted on the wall, and I will stay in that order. The reason we want to do this is because we want to always use the same terminology. So the same terminology that I use, my aide has to use, or anybody else, a substitute who would ever come in contact with a student or any other student would need to use that same vernacular. That way the student gets used to it. So in this case here, we are going to demonstrate the forward chaining. Clarissa, wash hands. Good job turning on the sink and putting your hands in there. Way to go. Next step, put soap on hands, 2 pumps, 1, 2. We're going to rub soap on hands, sing ABCs. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. Now we're going to wash off soap. Put hands in water. Wash off all soap. Good job. Turn off water. Get towel. 1, 2, 3. Grab towel. Rip. Dry hands. Walk to trash can. Throw away. Good job. And that's how we do forward chaining. In this next demonstration of task analysis, I'm going to go over backwards chaining. In backwards chaining, we teach the last part of the step to make it independent before we teach anything else. And then we start working on the preceding ones, the things that come before. So what we're going to do in this case is redo the exact same steps that we did in forward chaining, only this time she's going to know the last step, and we're going to reward the last step independently. Again, the same way when we did forward chaining, I'm going to use full physical on this one. However, you would want to be fading those prompts as quickly as possible until the entire sequence is done independently. Okay? Clarissa, wash hands. Go to sink. Turn on water. Wet hands. Put on soap. 1, 2. We're going to sing ABCs. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. Put hands in water. Wash off soap. Good job. Turn off water. Get towel. 3 pumps. 1, 2, 3. Grab towel. Pull. Dry hands. All dry. Good job throwing that away all by yourself. And that would be an example of backwards chaining.